is going on YouTube? On today's episode of Jalopy Jordan's Garage, we're going to be putting a different rear end and some different springs in this off of a second gen Camaro. So let's move this thing around. I've actually got this on rollers where I can slide it around and get it on the lift. And let me show you what we got going on and what we're planning on doing and see if we can't maybe get something situated. So stay tuned. All right, that was entirely too much work. I had one of the little dollies fall into my driveway, and I have a gravel driveway. Had to jack up the back end and get it. Took me like 10 whole minutes, so it really wasn't that bad. But let me show you what we got going on, because I have put a Camaro front subframe on this. I've not finished boxing and plating everything how I want to, but in the last episode, I'm sure you guys remember, we were working on doing this front radiator core support and to support the front end, because originally there was a mount here and that was obviously gone and the front end was drooping. So we had to come up with something. We used the stock Camaro mounting points and made something up here. But I don't know how well it'll show up on camera. I forgot to charge my flashlight. But this is the Camaro front subframe, and then back there, that is the original Oldsmobile subframe. When I get underneath the car, I can show you guys a little bit better view of how exactly I did that. And I can show you, I've got a 10 bolt from a Camaro over here. You guys can peep the jet boat. Got 10 bolt from a Camaro that it's going to be going on there. We're going to have to cut those brackets off, put some weld-on mounts. And then I've got the springs from Camaro up there somewhere hiding. Also got a nice set of slot aluminum wheels for the boat trailer. And we'll get there eventually, guys. But got some springs, but the front bushings are too wide to fit in the spring pockets of this. So we're using Dodge Diplomat from like the 80s bushings, because they fit the diameter of the bushing hole, but they're the right width to go in here. So we're gonna have to get those out of there. That might be a royal pain in the butt. The car that those are off of is a California car, so it might not be too bad, but it's gonna take a little finagling to get everything positioned right. But let's get this up in the air. Let's show you what we got going on. All right, we got this baby up in the air. So I have used a second gen Camaro front subframe on the front of this. I had cut the front of the frame horns off. Had to trim, obviously, some of the sheet metal out to make things fit. I plan on making some covers for these, and then this is obviously, if you watch my last episode, you'll see that. But the way that I kind of situated this is I ended up doing a bunch of measurements. I ran a string line from dead center all the way to a factory hole dead center, and then I used a center hole here. Set up some string lines. I'll try to show that in some footage here. I ended up cutting this area out the same shape. I made a pattern of the frame rail, and then I ended up using a bunch of points to measure to figure out where this needed to be. And then I used some factory mount holes. You can still see my writing there. As far as measurement points from center to make sure everything was square, and then whatnot. So this is kind of what we ended up with. I still have to take this outer rail. There's like a inner and an outer 2 C channels. I need to take and finish boxing that. But how it is now, it's not going to go anywhere. Don't look at my ugly welds there. It was not the prettiest. Okay, we're just gonna, but it's in place. It's not moving. It's not going anywhere. The wheelbase is right. It's in here square. I don't know what somebody did. Somebody previous to me at some point welded motor mounts in this. I don't know. I had to cut them all out. I'm going to finish grinding those all out, and then we'll figure out our mounting, or can't talk. We'll figure out where we need to mount our engine in here. We're using an LT1 out of like a 94 Cadillac hearse. Supposedly has 44,000 miles on it. That'll be a later date though. But this is what we're after here. So, turns out that the Chevy Camaro, I don't know how well this is going to show up. Might need to grab a light. The Chevy Camaro from the spring eye to the center bolt is the same distance as the 53 Old Springs. And there's a little bit less arch in them. The weight rating is similar. They should ride just a little bit stiffer. And then the overall length is 2 inches shorter. So we're going to have to move the rear mount for the shackle. We're going to move this forward 2 inches on each side. And then we're going to retain the front spring pockets and hope that this all comes apart. This is the Olds rear end in here currently. So we're going to be using a little amalgamation. We're going to take, there's some rivets that hold this in. We're going to grind those rivets off, get that to come out. We're going to take and move this hole 2 inches forward. We're going to drill a new hole, and then the piece in there that holds the bushing in place, there we go, we're going to move that forward 2 inches. We're going to get the bushing out of there. We're going to use the 53 Olds bushing on the top and the Camaro shackle bushing on the bottom. And that should allow us to put the Camaro springs in here. And it should also give us a little bit lower stance. Doing the front subframe already lowered the front quite a bit. So we're going to try to do that in the idea, but behind doing it this way, at the front end, we get modern disc brakes, we get modern ball joints, we can go to any parts store and buy parts for it. And then the same with the rear. And other than the 53 Olds bushings might be a little bit tricky to find, but they do still make them. So we're gonna get rid of this, and then it also makes all of our wheels have the same bolt pattern, etc., etc. So that's what we're looking at. So I think the first thing to do is try to get some of this stuff apart. All right, so I think we've got everything free. I'm gonna put this wheel back on. I originally was gonna think that I was gonna maybe try to save that e-brake cable, but I'm not gonna deal with it. I probably could have gotten this drum off, but it got to a certain point that I just didn't feel like taking the time. So got that sway bar out of there, and all these bolts are loose, so I'm gonna put that wheel back on. I'm gonna set it down so that it's got a little pressure on it, because I don't want to take those bolts out now because it'll come crashing down on me. And I don't know about you guys, but that just doesn't sound like a good time to me. So let's set this sucker down and see if I can't just roll this whole thing out. All right, so I think I got everything loose here. In theory, I should be able to just lift this thing up. So we're gonna set the camera right. All right, so I'm going to show you guys what we're doing now. Here's the idea. I've already started a little bit, but we are taking these rivets here, and there's 2 on the bottom and 2 on the sides that hold this piece in. That is the location for the rear spring. So we are going to grind off the rivets and then punch the rivet out, hopefully. And then we'll slide this thing forward 2 inches. We'll mark out where our hole needs to be, and then that'll relocate the rear shackle mount for the Camaro springs. And then we got to put the Diplomat bushings in the front of the Camaro springs. So we got to get the old bushings out of the spring eye on the front on those. That might be a royal pain in the butt. Okay, we got those rivets ground down. I don't know if it's going to show on camera, if you can see the outline of where they are or not. It's hard to see in person, even harder I think on camera, but you can see it now. So we're gonna try to get those out. I might need to use the air hammer on those. A lot of times these rivets that have been in there since, 1953, don't like to come out nice and easy. So we're gonna have to work on that a little bit. We're not messing around anymore. This will probably do the trick. Honestly, I don't even know why I tried punching that out with a hammer. That air hammer had this out in no time. So I'll finish punching those rivets out. But yeah, now we can reuse this. You can see we got that. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna relocate that hole 2 inches forward, and then it'll get bolted back in. Might have to fill that in and whatnot. We can figure that out as we go. Yeah, see, yeah, somewhere around there, I'm sure. If you've never had the pleasure of trying to get the bushings on the spring eye out, consider yourself lucky. That's how this one came out. I still have the other one to do, but got it out. I kind of always press this piece out first, and then what I do, a lot of times I take a Sawzall and I kind of cut it into pieces, and then try to get the rubber out, and then try to get the sleeve cut with a hacksaw or Sawzall blade without damaging the spring. So we got that out. Now, these are a little bit narrower than the factory Camaro. These are actually from like a mid-80s Dodge Diplomat. I had to do some digging around on the internet to find something that was the right size to get pressed in there. I've already pressed this one in, but I'll show you guys on the other one. I haven't done it yet. I'll show you guys how I did that. I just had to have a little proof of concept first before I told you guys that it was gonna work. But this will allow us to, dropping things. This will allow us to put that in here. They go in a little bit tight, but they will fit. And the other thing that we're gonna have to do, I don't really like this, but I'm gonna do it anyway, is the bolt that goes through there is a little bit bigger than this hole. I couldn't find any information out online about what size that was, so I kind of guesstimated, and I guesstimated wrong, but there's quite a bit of meat there. I got a silver and dummy bit set, so we're just going to drill that out. It's not that much different, so we'll do that. I'm not really proud of the things that I've done here, but it'll be okay. It'll be okay. Oh, yeah, I had to really open that puppy up, but yeah. Don't love it. All right, so here's the situation that I'm running into. If you look in here, you can see that take this out of here. You see this indent here? That spring is supposed to go in here. Well, this indent was never intended for the larger spring eye on the Camaro spring. You see how much bigger in diameter this is compared to the original spring eye. I really don't want to use the original springs. I really want to use the Camaro springs. They're a much nicer shape. Don't. I think my phone is ringing. I don't love the reusing the original springs. These will make me drop lower. The distance from the spring eye to there is correct. It's off of a California car. Yes, that is original steel. Like, there's lots to like about that versus these. Let me think about what I want to do here. This is a prime example of things don't always go to plan. This is that spring hanger that we were having trouble with, right? So this radius here is interfering with our ability to get this in because the spring hits it. I tried lightly rounding over that. I really don't like doing that, but it'll be fine. We can still use it. But no matter what we do, that spring eye will never line up correctly because it hits the backside of that. So this is sometimes where you need to adapt and overcome. I want to still reuse these. These are in good shape. I try to cut out right by the weld so I could slide this thing while I cut these ones here at a different spot. But we can weld it back in, get it in the correct position. It's not going to be that big of a deal. But what we need to do is figure out a way to massage this to fit. And I think the best thing to do, maybe just cut that out, add some metal. I got a couple ideas. I swear, I'm always waiting for that compressor to stop running. Okay, so this is what we're doing here. I just kind of made that bracket. This stuff is thick. If you ever look at a hanger on some of this newer stuff, I'm not too worried, to be honest. That's gonna get welded in there, and then I might take and put like another support off the top just to extend the mounting point, and then I'll weld this bracket back in place, and I think we'll be all hunky-dory. I'll have to do the same thing on this side. Kind of knowing what I need to do now, I think this side I can do a better job. And it's always a little bit of fiddle farting around trying to figure out how you're going to make some of this stuff work. It's a different day. We're back at it out here for a little bit, but kind of doing this all in little chunks as after work and as I have time to do it. And my goal has always been to try to get one thing done a day, and this has turned into a little more few things that I need to do. I rebuilt this spring, and by rebuilt it I mean I rattle canned it black, cleaned it up and painted it, so that's great. But if you come in here, you can see we filled that in, ground her down. Now we had to measure. I know that the distance between the mounting points on the Camaro spring is 2 inches further forward. So what I need to do is measure from the center forward. I've actually already done that. You can't really see it. There's a faint line there. And then I went on the back side and marked out the circle and center punched it. So I'm going to drill a hole there. And I'll take the hole saw and drill through that so I can move it forward, and then we'll be able to take and drill new holes to mount it. And then once we get that all figured out, we can fill these in with some weld and go from there. But that's what we're working with. All right, also I painted this thing up, figured if it's gonna go in here. So let's see if I put this thing in the right spot. I sure hope I did. Otherwise, yeah, look at that. Beautiful. That's gonna work out all right. Now I can locate those holes, drill them out. It's gonna be sweet. Then I can bolt it in. Originally that was riveted in, obviously. I had to grind the rivets off. You can see the other one here. Still have to pull it out. I'm just kind of, doing one side to make sure I can get it all to work. And once I figure out what works, I'm gonna do the other side. And it should go a little bit quicker. Once you kind of, whenever you're doing a car like this, there's some trial and error. Let's be real. Especially, I mean, if I was just a checkbook guy, I can buy new springs that are lowered and all that jazz for that, but they want quite a bit of money, and I already had these Camaro springs, And in reality, this car does not actually weigh much different than a second-gen Camaro. So I think it's going to be okay. Oh, look at that. Now we're talking. Let's take a look at that. Well, try to shed some more light on there. And you see, we got that bolt in and through, and got the spring in. I bolted in this piece, drilled a couple holes, bolted that in. You see it comes through on the other side. It's 2 inches forward from where it originally was. This is the stock shackle. I'm using the bushings from the 53 Olds in here, and then these are stock Camaro bushings. Fun fact, there's 2 different bushings for Camaro. There's narrower ones like this, and there's some wider ones that provided some extra comfort, or whatever they claim, extra comfort. I use the narrower ones. I want this thing to be kind of fun in the corners. Yeah, all right. Well, you guys can kind of get an idea of what I did. So through the magic of editing, I'm gonna finish doing this side and just kind of focus on that so I can get it done. And then we'll see if we can't get the rear differential in here. I'm not gonna be able to set pinion angle yet, so I'm not gonna weld the pads on for the spring pads yet. I still gotta take that other spring and get the bushings and everything out of it. It's just hanging out up here with some of my other parts. But let's go and do that real quick, and then we'll come back once we get the springs in and see if we can't start working on this rear end. You will have to pardon my mess over here, but take a look real quick at the width of the Camaro rear end. If we're looking at that compared to, this is the Olds, that's the Camaro. Man, I don't know that I can get much closer than that without, I mean, I had that left over from a project and I was like, well, I'm gonna keep it. These Olds rear ends, a little bit later, actually are very strong, but there's some differences between the early and like the 57 to 64 case. You could get those in a positive traction center section. They're kind of similar to a Ford 9-inch. And these actually used to be popular kind of before the Ford 9-inch back in the day for drag cars because they're incredibly stout. But the gear sets and availabilities for this 8.5-inch 10 bolts that I have is just so much better. The parts are so much cheaper. Brake parts are, you know, you can still get the brake parts for that, but we're going to use that guy. It should be plenty stout for the LT1 that we're going to throw in here. Even if we do throw maybe an LT4 hot cam in there, we'll see. But all right, let's go ahead and get back to working on that real quick, and I'll come back to you guys here once I get that finished up through the magic of movie editing, and we'll go forward from there. Through the magic of editing, somehow the other side has now been assembled. That was way more work than it should have been, but we've got them all put together. I need to get some more nuts. I've just got that in there for mock-up, but I think we're to a point that I need to get, I want to reuse these lower shock mount plates, and I need to cut the mounting pads off of that so we can use our weld-on ones there. We're probably just going to U-bolt this on for the time being because we'll have to get the engine and tranny in, and then we'll be able to use the angle coming off of the yoke coming out of there to figure out our pinion angle, and then we'll weld this once we know everything's in place where we need it to be. But for now, maybe take the plasma cutter and cut those things off and then grind them off. Let's see what we can get. Got some stuff on my face. I had to put my safety glasses on. There were sparks flying everywhere. But, I think we finally got all the brackets ground off of here. I can see that I got a little carried away with the plasma cutter, and I might have blown a hole through the axle tube. So I'm gonna take the welder and just buzz a couple of those little spots up and grind those flat real quick. Look at all this. I hate, if there's one thing I hate, it's grinding in the shop and making a mess, because then I gotta sweep it all up. But, okay, we are gonna attempt potentially the unfeasible. Let's see if I can lift this 10 bolt in here by myself. Not too bad. Oh. Okay, I got a second to breathe. Holy smokes. Yeah, I'll be feeling that. Probably in the morning. Looks like I had a leaky axle. That's all I'm gonna be taken care of at some point. Now the whole thing has to go that way. Well, it's something like that. I need to get in better shape. Oh, Lordy. There we go. Let's put some U-bolts on her. See if we can't get it somewhat centered. Wow. Holy smokes. I got an axle underneath here. Well, check this out, guys. Some light down here. Obviously, I still need to set the pinion angle and everything. I'm sure it's way wrong. I just put it up so it's kind of out of the way. Got my U-bolts on. I've not welded these pads on yet because I want to make sure that my pinion angle is set correctly once I get the engine and transmission and figure out what angle that's all supposed to be. But I've got it centered in there pretty good. Took a bunch of measurements, made sure it's kind of where it needs to be. So I'm gonna sweep up this disaster on the ground. Then we can put these wheels and tires back on her. Set her on the ground again with 4 wheels for the first time in a while. Oh, would you look at that? Got the wheels on. I'm gonna pull the locks, I'm gonna drop her down, see how she looks. Kind of curious. These Camaro springs look like they have like a ton of arch on them, but they actually flatten out an amazing amount when you get them on the ground. So let's go ahead and pull the locks here and let this baby down. Apparently all the locks are pulled. Okay, we're gonna pull it down. We're gonna pull it down. All right, folks, we got her on the ground. Let's take a look at this. She's sitting on Camaro suspension, front and back now. What should we call this? The Oldsmaro? The Cam 88, something like that? Basically, Camaro front, Camaro rear, Camaro radiator, LT1. You could have gotten that in a Camaro. Yeah. I think I need some lowering blocks and some lowering springs up front. I think that sits way too tall, but it's like stock ride height. It's not much different than those springs. Maybe we'll see. We'll see what it looks like when we get the engine and trans in it. That'll give us a good indicator. But, yeah. Sweet. All right. Well, I think that is going to do it for this episode of Jalopy Jordan's Garage. Stay tuned. We got more work coming on this thing. And watch out, because I'm going to Southern California this coming week. And I'm planning on driving something cool and old school back. I don't know what yet, but it's got to make it 2,000 miles across country. So stay tuned for that, because that'll be coming up. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you to like, follow, and subscribe. It really helps me out with bringing you guys this content and the things that I'm doing out here. So until next time.